Crash course on World Drug Trade Map. Where do drugs come from? How? The World Drug Trade Map refers to the global network of illicit drug production, transportation, and distribution. It is a complex and often secretive system that involves a variety of players, including drug lords, smugglers, corrupt officials, and street-level dealers. Drug trafficking is a multi-billion-dollar industry that spans the globe, with drugs moving across borders via air, land, and sea. The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC, estimates that the global drug trade generates between $426 billion and $652 billion annually. One of the most lucrative drugs in the global market is cocaine. The majority of the world's cocaine is produced in South America, primarily in Colombia, Peru, and Bolivia. The drug is then transported northward through Central America and Mexico, where it is smuggled across the US border and distributed throughout North America. Another major drug in the global market is heroin, which is primarily produced in Afghanistan and shipped through Iran, Pakistan, and other neighboring countries. The drug is then transported to Europe and the United States, where it is distributed through a network of dealers and suppliers. The rise of synthetic drugs, such as fentanyl and methamphetamine, has also had a significant impact on the global drug trade. Fentanyl, a powerful synthetic opioid, is primarily produced in China and shipped to the United States and other countries. Methamphetamine, also known as crystal meth, is primarily produced in Mexico and smuggled into the United States. The drug trade has had a significant impact on the economies and societies of many countries around the world. In addition to the violence and corruption associated with drug trafficking, the drug trade has also led to the displacement of farmers in developing countries who have been forced to grow drug crops in order to make a living. One example of the impact of drug trafficking can be seen in Colombia. In the 1980s and 1990s, the country was one of the world's leading producers of cocaine, and drug lords such as Pablo Escobar became household names. The violence associated with the drug trade was so severe that the murder rate in Colombia reached an all-time high in 1991. In response, the Colombian government launched a massive crackdown on drug trafficking, with the help of the United States and other countries. The effort was largely successful, and today Colombia is no longer the world's leading producer of cocaine. Another example can be seen in Mexico, where drug trafficking has fueled a wave of violence and corruption. Mexican drug cartels, such as the Sinaloa cartel and the Jalisco New Generation cartel, have become increasingly powerful in recent years, and their influence extends into many aspects of Mexican society, including politics, law enforcement, and business. The violence associated with drug trafficking has also had a devastating impact on Mexican society. In 2020, there were over 34,000 homicides in the country, many of which were linked to the drug trade. The global drug trade has also had a significant impact on the United States. The country has been particularly hard hit by the opioid epidemic, which has claimed the lives of tens of thousands of Americans in recent years. The opioid epidemic began in the late 1990s, when pharmaceutical companies began aggressively marketing prescription opioids such as OxyContin. Many people became addicted to these drugs, and when prescription opioids became harder to obtain, many turned to heroin and other illegal opioids. In response, the US government has launched a number of initiatives aimed at reducing the supply of illegal drugs and providing treatment for those struggling with addiction. These efforts have had some success, but the opioid epidemic continues to be a major public health crisis in the United States. Despite the efforts of law enforcement and governments around the world, the global drug trade continues to thrive. The vast profits associated with drug trafficking make it a highly lucrative business, and drug cartels and other criminal organizations have shown a remarkable ability to adapt to changing circumstances. One example of this can be seen in the rise of synthetic drugs such as fentanyl. Fentanyl is a highly potent opioid that can be produced relatively cheaply and easily, making it a highly profitable drug for those involved in its production and distribution. Another example of the adaptability of drug traffickers can be seen in the use of new technologies such as cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin have become increasingly popular as a means of conducting illegal transactions, as they offer a high degree of anonymity and are difficult to trace. In recent years, law enforcement agencies around the world have begun to take a more coordinated approach to tackling the global drug trade. The UNODC, for example, works closely with governments around the world to develop strategies aimed at reducing the supply of illegal drugs and providing treatment for those struggling with addiction. In addition, international cooperation between law enforcement agencies has increased, with agencies sharing information and resources in an effort to disrupt drug trafficking networks. Despite these efforts, however, the global drug trade remains a major challenge for governments around the world. The high profits associated with drug trafficking continue to attract criminal organizations, and the scale of the problem is such that no single country or agency can hope to solve it on its own. Here are top 12 world drug production sources. 1. Afghanistan. Afghanistan is the world's largest producer of opium, which is used to make heroin. Despite efforts by the Afghan government and international organizations to reduce opium production, the country still produces a significant amount of the world's supply. 2. Colombia. Colombia is one of the largest producers of cocaine in the world, and is responsible for much of the drug's global supply. The country has been a major focus of drug enforcement efforts in recent years, with significant success in reducing cocaine production. 3. Peru. Peru is another major producer of cocaine, and is responsible for a significant portion of the drug's global supply. The country's remote mountain regions provide ideal growing conditions for coca, the plant used to make cocaine. 4. Morocco. Morocco is one of the largest producers of cannabis in the world, with much of the drug's supply coming from the Rif Mountains in the country's north. The majority of the cannabis produced in Morocco is exported to Europe. 5. Myanmar. Myanmar is one of the largest producers of opium in the world, with much of the drug's supply coming from the country's Shan state. The opium produced in Myanmar is primarily exported to other countries in the region, including China and Thailand. 6. Mexico. Mexico is a major producer of methamphetamine, which is produced in large quantities in the country's western states. The country is also a major producer of marijuana and heroin, much of which is smuggled into the United States. 7. Bolivia. Bolivia is another major producer of cocaine, with much of the drug's supply coming from the country's Chapare region. The country has struggled to combat cocaine production in recent years, with some estimates suggesting that production has increased. 8. Laos. Laos is a significant producer of opium, with much of the drug's supply coming from the country's northern regions. The opium produced in Laos is primarily exported to other countries in the region, including China and Thailand. 9. Thailand. Thailand is a significant producer of methamphetamine, with much of the drug's supply coming from the country's northern regions. The drug is primarily exported to other countries in the region, including Australia and Japan. 10. India. India is a significant producer of opium, with much of the drug's supply coming from the country's northern regions. The opium produced in India is primarily used for medicinal purposes, but some is also diverted to the illegal drug trade. 11. Guatemala. Guatemala is a significant producer of cocaine, with much of the drug's supply coming from the country's remote regions. The country's Pacific and Caribbean coasts serve as important transit points for cocaine shipments destined for the United States and other countries. 12. Lebanon. Lebanon is a significant producer of cannabis, which is grown in the country's Bekaa Valley. The majority of the cannabis produced in Lebanon is exported to other countries in the region, including Syria and Iraq. In recent years, the country has also seen an increase in the production of synthetic drugs such as Captagon, which are primarily smuggled to other countries in the region. It's important to note that drug production sources can change over time, as governments and international organizations work to combat the global drug trade. The list above represents some of the top drug production sources as of 2021, but this is subject to change in the future. In conclusion, the World Drug Trade Map is a complex and constantly evolving system that involves a wide range of players and has a significant impact on societies around the world. While efforts to combat drug trafficking have had some success, the scale of the problem is such that it will continue to be a major challenge for governments and law enforcement agencies for the foreseeable future. A poem on World Drug Trade Map. In darkened corners, shadows loom. Where greed and power find their room. Where drugs flow freely through the night, and those who deal can take their flight. The world drug trade map is vast and wide, with tendrils reaching far and wide. From opium poppies in Afghan lands, to coca fields in Latin strands. From jungles deep in Southeast Asia, to mountain peaks in South America. Drugs flow like a poison tide, a plague that seems impossible to subside. Governments and agencies try to stem the flow, but the power of drug lords is hard to overthrow. They thrive on fear and corruption, and their grip on power is an unyielding suction. For those caught in the grip of addiction, Drugs are a constant affliction, a never-ending cycle of pain and despair that seems impossible to repair. The World Drug Trade Map is a complex weave of shifting alliances and hidden deceit, a web of darkness that ensnares us all and leaves us helpless to its thrall. So let us stand together, hand in hand, and fight against this scourge that blights our land. Let us strive to end this cycle of addiction and bring hope to those trapped in this affliction. ***, start planning your next global adventure with ease and convenience with our Booking.com referral link. https://www.booking.com/index.html $aid = 79893335 as a great choice to plan your next trip. You can find and book flights, hotels, cars, and local attractions all in one place, and their price match guarantee ensures you're getting the best deal. Thank you for kind support our AnHub Metaverse channel, and please watch more interesting videos here.